India, a country that cannot be understood, only felt. Chaotic, mystical, noisy, endless, and deeply sensual. Not for what it teaches, but for what it hides. In this land of ancient temples, sacred cows, and never-ending crowds, women are not mere supporting figures. They are living enigmas, goddesses and prisoners at once, inaccessible, yet irresistible. On every corner of this overpopulated, frenzied country, there is a story that blends desire, control, power, and fire. At first glance, they appear covered, discreet, almost invisible. Saris that wrap the body like a whisper, intense colors that hide more than they reveal, and glances that, if you dare hold them, ignite you from within. Because in India, the game of seduction is not explicit. It simmers slowly, like curries that boil for hours. You sense it in the way a woman adjusts her veil as she passes a stranger, in how she moves through the crowd, avoiding contact, but leaving behind an unforgettable perfume. The contrast is brutal. While the trains overflow with bodies pressed against one another, while the streets of Delhi and Mumbai drown in honking horns and dust, the Indian woman walks with a dignity that defies all chaos. She strides through the noise without losing her center. Some wear chains around their ankles that jingle. Others line their eyes as if each look were a prayer, and all of them possess a silent power that no god has fully explained. In modern India, the cult of the female body manifests in the most unexpected ways. For example, at weddings, which are true visual spectacles. During these ceremonies, brides dress in dazzling red outfits, jewelry covering every visible part of their bodies, and makeup that transforms their faces into works of art. But the most striking thing is what remains unspoken. Many of these women have been chosen without ever meeting their future husbands, yet they radiate beauty, magnetism, sensuality. They are offered as treasures, as walking divinities, as if, by marrying, they give not only their bodies but their entire souls. Despite their apparent submission, many of these women master the game of desire with ancestral skill. They know when to look and when to lower their gaze, when to speak, when to remain silent, and above all, when to seduce without anyone noticing. There is something profoundly erotic in that dance of control, in that way of not being there while commanding everyone's attention. But beyond the grand ceremonies, far from temples and lights, there is another India, one where sensuality is raw, more direct. In places like Varanasi, the sacred city bathed by the Ganges, desire mingles with death. It is common to see widows dressed in white, supposedly asexual, supposedly devoted only to prayer. Yet, if you stay long enough in those incense and ash-scented streets, you will discover that many of those widows have found new forms of pleasure, more discreet but no less intense. In rural areas such as Rajasthan, an ancient custom borders on the forbidden, the symbolic abduction wedding. A man pretends to abduct the woman with her consent as part of the courtship ritual. She screams, runs away, but her laughter gives her away. It is a game full of tension, mixing fear, excitement, duty, and tradition. In the end, they marry. And in that ceremony, the entire community celebrates a union that began as a pursuit charged with desire. Another unique aspect of India is the worship of female goddesses. Here, the feminine is not only venerated, it is feared. Kali, for example, is a goddess with a red tongue, exposed breasts, and a necklace of skulls. Her image is both sensual and terrifying. She represents uncontrolled desire, the pleasure that can destroy. And in many rural temples, women approach her to ask for strength, fertility, or vengeance. That ambiguity between the sacred and the erotic runs through all of Indian culture. A woman can be a virgin, a mother, and an object of desire simultaneously, and that makes her an impenetrable enigma. Bollywood films also fuel this fire. Although intimate scenes are rare, sexual tension is present in every song, every choreography, every hip movement that leaves the viewer imagining what is never shown. The most famous actresses are worshipped as contemporary goddesses, and their fans revere them as erotic saints. Curiously, many of these actresses come from conservative families and lead impeccable public lives, while portraying on screen liberated, audacious, and sensual women. It is a duplicity that India masters perfectly, living one thing and appearing as another. Contained desire, hidden beauty, a fire that burns without showing flames. In deep India, in villages where the rules are stricter, women have also found their own escape routes. Through traditional dances like Lavani or Mudra, many have made movement a form of resistance. They dance for other women, for themselves, to remember that their bodies do not belong only to those who choose them as wives. They belong to them, and they are sacred. Even in the digital realm, Indian women are breaking molds. Although many still use false profiles for fear of being discovered, they have begun to explore spaces where they can express their desire, their art, their image. Private accounts, closed groups, dating apps, each becomes a new stage where, little by little, they cease to be invisible. And then you realize that India is not only the most populous country in the world, it is also the one most laden with emotions, contradictions, and desire. Because here, amid the hum of markets and the prayers that fill the air, the real mystery lies not in the temples, but in the women who walk in silence, carrying baskets of fruit, flowers, and secrets on their heads, secrets that no one dares to name. In India, the sacred and the profane do not contradict each other. They embrace, they blend, they confuse. And it is in rural India, that which never appears in Bollywood films, where there are no neon lights or modern taxis, where courtship rituals and human relationships acquire an almost magical depth. Female desire, repressed for generations, seeps through the edges of tradition. It does not explode in a Western way, with loud words or blatant gestures. It filters in like incense in an ancient temple, gentle, slow, and utterly intoxicating. In the villages of Uttar Pradesh, one of the most conservative states in the country, the Mehendi ritual is still practiced, in which women's hands and feet are decorated with henna before a wedding. But what many do not know is that within those precisely drawn designs sometimes hide secret names. The name of a past lover, the name of a hidden desire, a way to immortalize in vegetable ink something that could never be spoken aloud. If someone discovers that name, tradition dictates that the husband must seek it out among his wife's curves on the wedding night, and so, unknowingly, that forgotten name becomes tattooed on the marriage's memory, like a shadow. In Rajasthan, land of golden deserts and medieval forts, there is another ritual deeply charged with sensuality, Ganga. It is a women's celebration in which young women, married or not, dress in their finest attire, sing traditional songs, and walk in procession carrying images of goddesses. What seems like a religious activity is, in reality, a powerful public display of female desire. The songs, laden with double meanings, speak of yearnings, of lovers, of nocturnal waits. Glances between young women and village men are permitted that day. They flirt, they smile, they promise without saying a word. In those soft melodies, the woman takes control of seduction, reminding everyone that she too chooses, even in a land where almost everything has been decided by others. In the tribal regions of eastern India, especially among the Santal and Gond communities, the rules of love are even more provocative to the outside observer. Here, free love is not a Western novelty. It has existed for centuries. In these villages, women can choose whom to spend the night with. There is no scandal, no shame. At festivals such as Jani Shikar, young people of both sexes dance for hours, drink palm liquor, and choose partners for one night. Some relationships become permanent, others do not. But in this parallel universe within the most conservative India, the woman not only has a voice, she has power, she has desire, and she allows herself to enjoy it. In many of these villages, the right of a woman to live alone without a husband is also respected. The so-called Joginis or Devadasis, even though their figure has been greatly misunderstood over time, represent an example of how the religious and the erotic intertwine. Originally, these women were consecrated to temples and considered symbolic wives of the deity. They played a central role in rituals, dances, and chants. Their beauty was legendary, and they were trained in sensual arts, poetry, music, and philosophy. Over time, however, many were exploited under abusive systems. But at the root of the tradition lay a powerful idea that the female body was sacred and desirable. In mountainous regions of the north, such as Himachal Pradesh and some villages in Uttarakhand, polyandrous marriage, where one woman marries several brothers of a family, is still practiced. Born from the need not to divide inheritance among many sons, this practice places the woman at the center of the family structure. Although the economic motive may dominate, it is undeniable that in these cases, the desire of multiple men revolves around a single female figure, and she, aware of her role, manages that balance with ancestral wisdom. Another practice that defies all conventional schemes is the matrimonial fairs. In Bihar or parts of Madhya Pradesh, events are organized where women literally exhibit themselves to be chosen as wives. The scene is striking. Rows of women dressed in their finest garments, seated as men walk before them, observing them as if they were sacred statues. Although it may seem degrading from a modern perspective, many women attend voluntarily, knowing that these fairs give them the opportunity to choose as well. It is not only being looked at, it is looking back, and between the glances there are secret codes, signals, barely drawn smiles. Because in India, even the strongest desire is expressed with minimal gestures. And while all this unfolds in the villages, in the big cities, the female revolution takes on different forms. In Bangalore, Delhi, or Pune, many young women are redefining what it means to be desired and to desire. In universities, feminist reading circles form, including erotic poetry written by Indian women centuries ago. In hidden cafes, they share intimate experiences, talk about polyamorous relationships, and about sex without marriage. In the streets, some women choose not to wear a sari or veil, while others wear them proudly, reappropriating them as symbols of strength. The important thing is that now the body is inhabited with awareness, with pleasure, with power. On dating apps like Tinder or Bumble, Indian women behave in a very particular way. They don't always show their faces. They prefer to leave clues, a suggestive phrase, a book, a landscape. But once someone makes a connection, conversations become intense, deep, erotic. Because in India, even digital flirting has an ancient, almost mystical flavor, as if each written word carried the weight of 1,000 years of contained desire. And amid all this, female figures emerge who break every mold. Designers who create clothing inspired by warrior goddesses, actresses who play wise courtesans, influencers who speak about menstruation and pleasure without censorship. Some receive threats, others are idolized. All of them, without exception, are reconfiguring the place of the female body in the Indian imagination. But not everything is celebration. Female desire in India still pays a high price. Violence against women remains an open wound. Street harassment, forced marriages, dowry-related femicides, all of this coexists with seduction, beauty, and play. Because India is that, pure contradiction, where a woman can be worshipped as Lakshmi on her home altar and abused by her husband hours later. Where one dances in honor of Shiva while concealing a secret love in a letter that will never be sent. Yet female desire in India is stubborn. It insists. It persists. It blooms. It no longer asks for permission. It expresses itself in a poem, in a dance, in a photograph hidden on a private Instagram profile. It shows itself in the way a young woman walks alone through a bazaar teeming with men, in the way she says no with a smile, or yes without uttering a word. Thus, amid the infernal din, the impossible traffic, the incense-filled temples, the sweat, the dust, the gods watching from on high, the Indian woman moves like a secret, unstoppable, indescribable, and deeply desirable. In the heart of India, where the rules seem unbreakable and social structures look carved in stone, figures emerge who shatter the mold with a silent yet relentless force. Women who never asked for permission, who chose to live on their own terms in a country that was constantly telling them how they ought to be. And the most powerful thing of all, many of them did it through their bodies, through art or through love. This chapter is dedicated to them, to the heroines of desire, to those who transformed stigma into power. Let us begin with Madhumita, a dancer from the state of Odisha. She was born in a tiny village where girls were married before they turned 16, and where the female body was supposed to be hidden beneath layers of cloth and silence. But Madhumita was different. As a child, she would imitate the movements of Odissi dancers, a classical, sensuous dance in which every curve of the body becomes a poem. Secretly, she would study ancient Devadasi carvings in temples, imagining that one day she too would be adored not for what she concealed, but for what she revealed through her art. Against all odds, she moved to Bhubaneswar, the state capital, and there she began studying dance professionally. In every performance, her body spoke. With each hip movement, with each wrist turn, she told stories of love, desire, surrender, and female fury. Some accused her of indecency, others of impurity. But she kept dancing, and her sensuous, powerful dance began to fill entire halls. Her fame grew so much that she was invited to perform at international festivals. In Paris, in New York, in Dubai, audiences surrendered to her portrayal of Radha, Krishna's beloved, whose desire was so potent it made even the god himself tremble. Madhumita proved that an Indian woman could command a stage without losing an ounce of dignity. That desire itself could be art. Then there is Ritika, a writer from Mumbai who decided to speak openly about sex in a country where even uttering the word pleasure in its feminine form could cost you your family's respect. She launched a blog titled My Body, My Temple, where she narrated her sexual experiences without guilt or shame. It was not pornography. It was an intimate, poetic, deeply honest confession. She wrote about her first orgasm, her fear of being judged, unrequited love, solitary pleasure. And she did so in such elegant prose that even the most conservative readers found themselves reading her posts, albeit in secret. Within weeks, her blog went viral. Thousands of women began writing to her, some to insult her, but most to thank her. Ritika became a beacon for an entire generation of young women who lacked words to name what they felt. She opened erotic writing workshops, moderated private forums for women eager to explore their desires, and published a book that became a bestseller. She never disrobed physically, but with her words, she achieved what few had. She transformed the female body from taboo into sacred text. In another corner of the country, in Kerala, lives Shania, a trans activist who decided to make her transition a public work of art. In India, trans people, hijras, have long been part of the cultural fabric but have also endured brutal marginalization. Shania refused to live on the fringes. She wanted to shine. So she became a model. She walked runways, posed for fashion magazines, always presenting herself with a deeply feminine, defiant, seductive gaze. Her body was not perfect by traditional standards, but her presence was magnetic. In one interview, she said, "I was born in a country that worships goddesses, yet punishes women who feel like goddesses. I am both, and no one can take that from me." Shania also founded an organization to help other trans women access medical care, housing, and job opportunities. She organizes inclusive fashion shows, artistic events, and sacred sexuality seminars. She turned her body into a banner and her desire into a revolution. Today, she is one of the most influential women in modern India. And it all began with a single question: why can't I be desired too? We must not forget Meera, a university professor who left her husband after 20 years of an arranged marriage. Her story was not of scandal, but of dignity. For years, she lived what appeared to be a perfect life, an engineer husband, 2 children, a home of her own, but Meera felt she was not alive. Her husband never touched her tenderly. He never looked at her with desire. She, in turn, offered him obedience. Until one day she met another professor at a literature conference. They spoke of poetry, then of philosophy. And before she knew it, Meera began to feel again, to desire, to envision a different future. She risked everything, her marriage, her social standing, her reputation. She moved alone to another city and began a new life at 47 years old. She did not become a celebrity. She did not write books, but she was free. And her story inspired dozens of women in her community to consider for the first time what they truly wanted. Because desire can also spark the most powerful rebellion, the rebellion of choosing how to live. And then there are the anonymous women, those no one ever interviews, those who never appear on television but who live each day as an act of sensual resistance. Like Anjali, the flower seller in Chennai, who perfumes herself every Friday before heading to the market. Not because she expects to seduce anyone, but because she wants to smell good for herself. Or Fatima in Hyderabad, who learned to ride a motorcycle so she could travel the rural roads alone and sell her goods without depending on anyone. Her veil neatly adjusted, yet her smile takes the breath away of anyone who crosses her path. India teems with such stories. Women who use their bodies to dance, to write, to heal, to lead. Women who harness desire as their engine, who know that being desired is beautiful, but to desire is even more powerful. And that is the revolution happening without headlines. On jam-packed train corridors, in cinema restrooms, in private social media groups, in the dark rooms where a woman finally looks in the mirror and no longer apologizes for wanting. Because in India, female desire has been repressed for centuries, but it has never vanished. It has lived in songs, in myths, in temples, and now it lives in the women who, without making noise, are changing the country. With every step they take, every word they write, every choice they make, they prove that the forbidden can also be sacred. Perhaps that is India's true madness, that amid its unbearable noise, its extreme poverty, its endless chaos, its crushing tradition, something so beautiful, so potent, so unexpected has arisen. A woman who belongs to herself, who desires herself, who loves herself. India's cities are an impossible spectacle to ignore. The vehicular chaos, the endless horns, the aromas of curry and humidity mixing, glances exchanged without a word, and a sun that feels closer than anywhere else in the world. But beyond the evident chaos, a phenomenon stirs in silence amid neon lights and concrete labyrinths. The awakening of women. Not the awakening sought by religions, nor the one preached in motivational speeches. It is a sensual awakening, both intimate and cerebral, both physical and spiritual. It is desire taking form. It is power redefined. And it is happening now, in every corner of urban India. Cities like Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi and Kolkata have become new stages for this silent revolution. Here, women work, study, live alone, love whom they choose, and above all, begin to claim the right to desire. It is not only about sex, it is about autonomy, expression and identity. In a country where women were taught for centuries to hide, some now dare to reveal. In Bandra's bars, Koramangala's art cafes, Housecase's literary clubs, or Pondicherry's yoga studios, people speak openly of pleasure, freedom and the body. A new kind of Indian woman is emerging. One who does not reject her tradition but refuses to be solely defined by it. She can wear a sari or ripped jeans, speak Hindi or perfect English, pray to Lakshmi and dance to reggaeton in the same night. They are chameleonic women, not because they adapt to others' expectations, but because they own the whole stage. Take Ishita, for example, an influencer who rose to fame not through scandals or controversies, but by posting videos of herself dancing sensually inside an abandoned temple. Many criticized her moves as sacrilegious, but Ishita's intent was not provocation, but reconciliation, between the sacred and the corporeal, between the ancestral and the modern. Her followers adored her, and inadvertently, Ishita became a muse for this new generation, sensuous, courageous and spiritual. In Pune's and Hyderabad's co-working spaces, many women lead double lives. They are programmers, designers, data analysts, and also secret poets, nighttime artists, furtive lovers. The workday ends with a glass of wine and an intimate conversation with a friend about a secret date, a dating app, or an experience they cannot share at home. In these new spaces, sisterhood has an erotic tint. They share advice on protection, self-care, self-exploration. Because now desire is something to be educated. In Chennai's and Jaipur's independent bookstores, shelves are beginning to fill with authors who, 20 years ago, would have been silenced. Writers narrating lesbian relationships in remote villages, women discovering their bodies in adulthood, divorcees reinventing love after 50. These books no longer need to be hidden in a brown paper bag. They are read on the metro, in parks, in cafes. And in doing so, many women see themselves reflected for the first time. Social media has also become a battleground. On Instagram, Indian women post photos displaying their stretch marks, their bare breasts, their unfiltered faces. Not to please others, but to claim their space, to say, "This is my body and it is beautiful too." On Twitter, discussions rage about abortion, polyamory, female masturbation, consent. On TikTok, sensual choreographies to traditional songs go viral, mixing nostalgia with provocation. Yet amid all this progress, India remains India. Contradictions persist. A woman can be the CEO of a company and still be forced into marriage by her parents. She can wear a short skirt in an international office and then have to change into a salwar kameez for her native village. She can use a dating app and be watched by her neighbors, because change is underway but far from complete. And still, the most fascinating thing about today's Indian woman is not her ability to break rules, but the way she dances among them. She does not seek to copy Western models. She does not want to stop being Indian. She wants to redefine what it means to be an Indian woman. And in that process, they support one another. They write to each other, they listen, they embrace, they teach each other to love their bodies. And yes, they also desire one another, sometimes between themselves, sometimes in secret, but always with a power that both frightens and fascinates. In universities, some professors teach courses on eroticism in Sanskrit literature. In independent film festivals, short movies depict love stories between women in Muslim villages or between two widows in a Hindu temple. In Goa's underground nightclubs, themed parties inspired by the Kama Sutra celebrate not as a tourist cliché, but as a reclamation of lost knowledge. Because India was not always so conservative. Before British colonization, eroticism was integral to art, religion, and daily life. The Khajuraho temples, with their explicit sculptures, testified to a civilization that did not fear desire. It revered it, carved it in stone, sang it in verses. And today, many women seek to reclaim that past, not to remain in it, but to carry it forward. The most exhilarating fact is that this revolution has no single leaders or grandiloquent manifestos. It is a revolution of whispers, of everyday decisions, of small transgressions that, added together, are transforming the country. It is a woman who masturbates for the first time without guilt, a mother who speaks to her daughter about pleasure, a teenager who says no and is heard, a grandmother who dares to love again. India, the world's most populous, chaotic country, is also the land of the greatest number of goddesses. Perhaps therein lies its deepest truth, that the female body, repressed for centuries, now walks, sings, dances, screams and revels. It no longer asks for permission. It no longer hides. It no longer only inspires ancient poems. Now it writes its own poems, on skin, in glances, in the night. And it does so with the unstoppable power of desire. Because in the end, India's most beautiful madness is not its noise nor its disorder, but its women, who desire, who choose, who dream, and who, little by little, are teaching the world what it means to love without fear.